And you're watching News9 Live, where we bring you the top trending stories of the day so that you can kickstart your day. Well, the first story coming in today is the escalating diplomatic row between India and Canada. It continues to escalate, the tension continues to grow between the two countries. And now recently, after Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pulled out 41 diplomats from India on Friday and blamed the government for making it unbelievably difficult for millions of people's lives in India and in Canada, the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said in return that India invoked the provision of parity in Canada's diplomatic presence in the country in view of concerns over interference in New Delhi's affair by Canadian personnel on Sunday. The External Affairs Minister also said that India is likely to resume issuance of visas to Canadians if it sees progress in the safety of Indian diplomats in Canada as well. Let's quickly listen in to what Jaishankar had to say on this.
Finally, there's this whole issue of parity, that the size of how many diplomats there are of one country versus how many diplomats there are of the other country. Parity is very much provided for by the Vienna Convention, which is the relevant international rule on this. But in our case, we invoke parity because we had concerns about continuous interference in our affairs by Canadian personnel. We haven't made much of that public. My sense is over a period of time, more stuff will come out and people will understand why we had the kind of discomfort with many of them which we did.
Well, it's also important to note that Canada recently stopped all the in-person operations in various cities and visa services, which has caused a lot of tension for the Indian students as well, because students who applied to go abroad for their studies, especially in Canada, are facing a lot of problems because of this ongoing diplomatic row between India and Canada. It seems like the tension is going to escalate because Canada is coming out and saying that India is making extremely difficult for millions of lives living in India and Canada, and the relations that are continuing to deteriorate is causing a lot of problems for the civilians, for the professionals as well. Meanwhile, Jaishankar has come out and he is saying that this kind of interference from the Canadian personnel was something that was not necessary and we were not feeling comfortable with it, and that is why we had asked 41 diplomats to withdraw and has asked Canada to take them away from India, and that is what has been happening. And the tension between the two global powers continues to escalate. Pierre Poilievre, one of the opposition leaders in Canada, is also coming out and criticizing Justin Trudeau over saying that Canada is deteriorating its bilateral ties with almost every top global leader in the country, including India. And Pierre Poilievre said that he is looking forward to create a professional relationship with India amid the ongoing Cold War between the two nations. And now moving on, the political slugfest continues in India as well. Well, Mallikarjun Kharge wrote a letter to PM Modi opposing the deployment of senior bureaucrats to show the achievements and schemes of government. In response to the letter, BJP National President JP Nadda said that it may be an alien concept to the grand old party, but public service delivery is the duty of a government. This came after Kharge took strong exception to a government order dated October 18, which stated that senior officers of ranks as high as Joint Secretary, Director and Deputy Secretary are to be deployed to all 765 districts of India. Nadda also said that it is baffling for him to see the Congress party having an issue with public servants reaching the grassroots. This Kharge versus Nadda has been going on, and Kharge has written a letter to PM Modi opposing that senior level officials there is no necessity to deploy them to the 765 districts so that they can showcase the achievements of the government. Where JP Nadda is coming out and saying that the Congress party, it is an alien concept for the Congress party so that the public servants can reach the grassroots. He's coming out and he's saying, I don't understand what is the problem with the public servant, interacting with the people, so that it will create more trust with the government, it will create more development in the country. And the grand old party, Congress party, is opposing that, which is very surprising to me. That is what Nadda has said as responding to the letter that Kharge wrote to PM. Well, and now moving on, the tension in the South China Sea continues to escalate. The armed forces of the Philippines recently released footage showing Chinese vessel obstructing a Philippine boat attempting to deliver supplies in the disputed waters of the South China Sea. The incident is part of an ongoing series of maritime clashes between the two countries. In response, Manila strongly criticized China's dangerous blocking maneuvers, describing them as dangerous, irresponsible and illegal actions that infringe on Philippine sovereignty and jurisdiction. This condemnation was expressed by Manila's task force for the West Philippine Sea. China's Coast Guard, on the other hand, stated that the Philippine vessel had disregarded repeated warnings, crossed in front of the Chinese ship and deliberately incited the collision, shifting the blame to the other country as well. Let's take a look at this report.
China and the Philippines traded accusations over a collision in disputed waters of the South China Sea on Sunday as Chinese vessels blocked Philippine boats supplying forces there. Armed forces of the Philippines released this video showing the Chinese vessel grazing the hull of the Philippines boat. The collision occurred during the Philippines' resupply mission to troops stationed on a rusted World War II-era transport ship used as an outpost on the shoal. China's Coast Guard said they were lawfully blocking the boat from transporting illegal construction materials to the warship. Manila responded by condemning in the strongest degree the dangerous blocking maneuvers of the Chinese vessel. The U.S. sided with the Philippines, offering support to its ally. In a statement on Sunday, the U.S. State Department said China's actions amounted to repeated harassment in the South China Sea and that they were dangerous and unlawful. Beijing claims sovereignty over almost the entire South China Sea, including parts of the exclusive economic zones of Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. The Permanent Court of Arbitration in 2016 said China's claims had no legal basis.
And now moving on, the first meeting of the Telugu Desam Party and the Jan Sena Party's Joint Action Committee will be held in Raja Mahadevaram. The objective of the meeting is to strategize and accelerate political activities in the state against the YSRCP government. TDP General Secretary Nara Lokesh and JSP Chief Pawan Kalyan will preside over the meeting. Both the TDP and the JSP announced the names of leaders to represent the coordination committee. The leaders from both parties will discuss a joint action plan for addressing public issues, the latest political developments and steps for better coordination between the two parties. As we are moving towards 2024 elections, the parties, whether it's JSP, whether it's Pawan Kalyan, whether it's the TDP, all are prepping up for the upcoming elections. They are planning a committee so that they can talk about the party's agenda, they can address public issues, they can create a joint action plan for the political road ahead and the developmental road ahead for the state as well. The two parties are stepping up together for better coordination between them. The meeting is about to held in upcoming days. Nara Lokesh and JSP Chief Pawan Kalyan will preside over the meeting. That is the latest that we are getting on it. The objective of the meeting is to strategize and accelerate political activities in the state against the YSRCP so that both the parties can come together and fight against the ruling party as well. So whether this strategy, this coalition, this alliance will work for the party is something that we'll have to wait and see. And now shifting our focus to Israel and Hamas war that has been going on for this is the 70th day that we are going to report today, and the tension between the two parties continues to escalate. Let's take a look at all the latest developments. Well, today marks day 17 since Hamas carried out attacks on southern Israel, resulting in the loss of more than 1,400 lives and the kidnapping of over 200 Israeli citizens as hostages. The latest updates that we are getting is that thwarted Israeli ground invasion near Khan Yunis, that is what Hamas has reported. Israel's tank was mistakenly and accidentally fired into Egypt, that is the latest we are getting in. Israel continues to pound Gaza. Israel is continuing to intensify its airstrike against the city. Death toll touches 6,142 in Israel-Hamas war till now. Emmanuel Macron to visit Israel. The French president is about to plan a visit soon to war-torn Israel. 212 people being held as hostages by Hamas as well. UN has come out and said that the humanitarian situation in Gaza is catastrophic and the civilians are the ones who are being targeted and it needs to be addressed as soon as possible. And now moving on, amid the ongoing Israel-Hamas war, the Israeli military accidentally fired and hit an Egyptian post. One of its tanks is reported to have mistakenly fired inadvertently, hitting an Egyptian post near the Gaza border. Even as the IDF continued to bombard the Gaza Strip, the Egyptian military said the blast caused minor injuries. The IDF Twitter handle said that the IDF expresses sorrow regarding the incident near the Kerem Shalom area. The incident is being investigated and the details are under review. The IDF expressed sorrow regarding the incident, that is what it wrote in its Twitter or formerly Twitter and X account yesterday. The Egyptian army stated that Israel had immediately expressed its regret over the unintentional incident and an investigation is underway. The Egyptian media, citing witnesses, stated that Israel's strike won't disrupt the passage of aid to Gaza, and the tension between Israel and Egypt continues to grow over it. The Rafah crossing, which is the only entry for humanitarian aid for Gaza, was opened on Saturday last time, which only allowed 20 trucks, which the Gazans are saying is not enough humanitarian aid. But Joe Biden has come out, and all the other global leaders, including India as well, who has been sending humanitarian aid to Gaza, is requesting Egypt to keep the Rafah crossing open so that the humanitarian aid continues to enter the Gaza city and helps the people of Gaza as well. Well, now moving on, in a joint statement, the Israeli Defense Forces and the Israel Security Agency ISA have said that IDF fighter jets took out Mohammad Katmash, who was the deputy head of Hamas's artillery unit in the Gaza Strip. He was responsible for coordinating artillery operations in the Central Brigade of Hamas in Gaza. Katmash also played a significant role in planning and carrying out rocket attacks on Israel in previous conflicts as well. Katmash was responsible for fire and artillery management in terror group's Central Camps Brigade and played a significant role in the planning and execution of organization's fire plans against Israel in all rounds of fighting in the Gaza Strip. It's a big development and big achievement for the IDF as well, because they are in recent press conference, the Admiral has came out and said, IDF spokesperson, he has been saying that the next operation, the next stage of the next objective of IDF is going to target all the senior leaders of Hamas. And the latest news that is coming in is that IDF was able to get hold of the artillery head of Hamas, and he has been killed in Israeli airstrike as well. And now moving on, Israel said that its aircraft struck Hezbollah targets in Lebanon as well. The Israel-Gaza border is not the only one to worry about. The Israel-Lebanon border, the tension at the Israel-Lebanon border continues to grow with continuous counter-attacking from both the sides. Israel has come out and said that Israel has targeted some sites of Hezbollah in Lebanon, and that one of its soldiers was hit by an anti-tank missiles as well in cross-border fighting that the Iran-backed group said killed 6 of its fighters. Hezbollah has come out and said that the fighting. The intense battle has resulted in killing of 6 of its fighters, with the frontier region seeing its worst violence in years as Israel wages war against Gaza's Hamas terrorist group. The Israeli military said that it traded fire with Hezbollah in at least 4 different areas along the Lebanese border. The hostiles have forced residents on both sides to flee their homes. Israel's military says that 7 soldiers have been killed since October 7. Hezbollah says 19 out of its fighters in total have died, including the 6 that has recently died in the fresh violence that erupted at the Israel-Lebanon border. The violence has also killed civilians and journalists. That is what has been reported from the side of Hezbollah. Well, amid the ongoing war, amid the ongoing criticism against Israel's intel failure and question raised against Netanyahu, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has issued a stern warning to Hezbollah, cautioning them about the potential consequences of going to war with Israel. He emphasized that such a conflict would bring immense devastation to both Hezbollah and Lebanon. Netanyahu also expressed concerns that Hezbollah's actions could escalate into a broader regional war, though he couldn't confirm whether Hezbollah would fully commit to such a war. He has come out and said that this will be the biggest mistake of their life if Iran, if Hezbollah, if they all decide to come in between of the ongoing war between Israel and Gaza. He has issued a stern warning against Hezbollah that do not enter the war, do not interfere between Israel and Gaza, and do not back Hamas terrorist group, because it will be the biggest mistake of your life, and this will expand the war, this will create, this will escalate the war into a broader regional war that will cause massive destruction, loss of lives, infrastructural damage as well. So the warning has been sent out to Hezbollah to stay out of the war, stay out of the conflict between the two sides. And now our team has been deployed on ground zero, and they have been providing us with latest development of the site. My colleague Manish Jha was at the Lebanese border. He gets the latest on what's happening on that front. Let's take a look at the report.
Right now I am at Israel-Lebanon border, and this place is known as Kiryat Simona. This is one of the 42 places where the Israeli government has asked to vacate it. All the civilians who are staying here, who are living here, they have been asked to vacate it and go to some secure place, because the Hezbollah is continuously attacking on these area. You can see the mountain, and top of the mountain, this is the Israeli post. From this location, continuously IDF attacking the opposite side, the Hezbollah. And the Hezbollah is also attacking this side, and most of the time, those rockets are coming near these area. And that's why, for the security of these peoples, the government has asked them to vacate these locations, go to some safe place, and the peoples are going out. There are very few peoples here. Most of them have already evacuated, but some of them who are here, they are going out, so that these places will be used by the armed personals. Right now I am moving around this area, and I have found lots of army vehicles and the military posts. All these are deployed here, and at the same time you can see this area where I am standing right now, and mostly these area are totally empty. No one is here. All the shops, markets are closed now, and the people who are here, they all are going out to find some safe places. So this is the location here where everyone is watching now.
Well, as the Rafah crossing border is the only entry site for humanitarian aid to go to and to reach the people of Gaza, there was 20 trucks carrying humanitarian aid crossed into Gaza on Saturday.
From the
Some Gazans said that it was far from what was needed to help over 2 million people currently under siege in the Strip. Let's take a look at this report.
The first convoy of trucks carrying humanitarian aid crossed into Gaza Saturday from the Egyptian border. It comes after 12 days of total siege of the Strip since the October 7th attack on southern Israel by Hamas militants, which killed 1,400 Israelis. But for many who have been displaced in the growing conflicts, 20 trucks are simply not enough for the enclave's 2.3 million people. Where is your humanity? We need to know what is being done, says this man, who is calling on Arab countries to send help. Before the outbreak of war, an average of about 450 aid trucks were arriving daily in Gaza. Since the October 7th attack, Israel has hammered Gaza with airstrikes. Here, in a crowded school in Gaza's south, Tahrir Tabash and her children are among hundreds of other families taking shelter from Israeli bombardment. She says that if her children hear so much as a chair being moved, they jump in fear.
Our children suffer a lot at night. They cry all night. They pee themselves without meaning to. And I don't have time to clean up after them, one after the other. The place is full. I can't take care of my children, clean for them, I can't. There is not even 1% of a good, healthy, and safe life for a child. There is no safety. If we don't die from war, we will die from epidemics and diseases.
More than 4,000 Palestinians have been killed, including hundreds of children, and 13,000 wounded in Gaza, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. The United Nations says more than 1 million have been made homeless. There are no safe bomb shelters in Gaza, where over 50% of Palestinians live in poverty. In Egypt, Arab leaders condemned the siege of Gaza at a summit convened hastily to find a peace settlement. But the absence of Israel and senior U.S. officials at the meeting undermined any prospect for halting the escalating war.
Well, as the humanitarian crisis continues to escalate in Gaza, India has extended its support and has sent humanitarian aid to the war-torn Gaza Strip. Even as the conflict between Israel and Hamas continues to rage on, India has come out and it has sent a gift from the country. The Air Force flight carrying nearly 6.5 tons of medical aid and 32 tons of disaster relief material have been sent to Palestine. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, the IAF flight IAF Seat 17 departed for El Arish Airport in Egypt. The ministry said that the material included essential life-saving medicines, surgical items, tents, sleeping bags, trampolines, sanitary utilities, and water purification tablets, among other necessary items. The items will be sent to Palestine via the Rafah border crossing, which is the only gateway for the humanitarian aid to reach the citizens of Gaza as well. India's aid to Palestine comes 3 days after Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Palestinian Authority President Mohammed Abbas. PM Modi stated that India will continue to send humanitarian aid to Gaza while also expressing condolence for the loss of lives in the Strip. The Israel-Hamas conflict, which began on October 7, has led to a massive humanitarian crisis in the Middle East, with civilians not having even fresh water to drink. The humanitarian crisis continues to worsen in the Gaza city, and when the Rafah border crossing got open for a little bit of amount of time, only 20 trucks were able to enter the city. But this is the tweet that you're on your screens is from Arindam Bakshi, the Ministry of External Affairs. They have been carrying out and they have been saying that the material what was sent in the humanitarian aid, whether it was sanitary utilities, whether it was trampoline, whether it was water sanitization, water purification tablets, whether it was tents, sleeping bags, all the necessities, life-saving medicines and essentials have been sent from India to Palestine for people of Gaza as well. They are saying that this aid will reach the people of Gaza through the Rafah crossing border, as they will get a hold of it as well. And now moving on, as all the global leaders and the countries pursuing Israel on to let people of Gaza be able to reach to the humanitarian aid that has been sent to them, Israel has finally allowed humanitarian aid in Gaza. On Saturday, after 12 days of siege, the aid flowed through the Rafah border crossing from Egypt, carrying food, water and medical supplies. The UN said 8 convoys included life-saving supplies and would be distributed in South Gaza by the Palestinian Crescent. The UN also said that 100 convoys would be needed every day in Gaza as aid. Israel didn't allow any fuel to enter Gaza as Hamas can use that to make weapons. President Biden, who did a short visit to Israel, who signed a deal with Egypt as well to make sure that the Rafah border crossing opens up, has cheered for the arrival of aid in Gaza and said that he would keep working with all parties to ensure that Rafah crossing remains open. He has also promised the people of Gaza, the people of Israel as well, that he is going to pitch to the Congress in US so that they can provide more military aid, more humanitarian aid to the war-torn Israel and Gaza at this point.
At the instruction of the government, aid was entering through the Rafah crossing carrying food, water and medicine that is for the population in the southern area of Gaza only. Fuel was not entered into Gaza.
And now, the latest that we were getting in that there were 216 hostages that were still in captivity by the Hamas terrorist group. Hamas has released 2 American hostages, a mother and a daughter, marking the first known hostage release in the conflict with Israel. Judith and Natalie Ranan were kidnapped during Hamas's surprise attack on Israel on October 7 and were received at the border by Israeli forces. Take a look at this report.
The Islamist group Hamas has freed 2 American hostages, a mother and a daughter, the first known hostage release in the war between it and Israel. Israel's military spokesperson said Judith and Natalie Ranan were kidnapped during Hamas's surprise attack on Israel on October 7th, and that they were received on the border by Israeli forces. The International Committee of the Red Cross says it transported them through Gaza. The Hamas attacks in Israel killed 1,400 people. Around 200 were taken as hostages. Hamas says the mother and daughter were released for humanitarian reasons and, quote, to prove to the American people and the world that claims made by Biden and his fascist administration are false. They also say that the hostage release came from negotiations by the government of Qatar. This was U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
We expect a team from the U.S. Embassy to see them very shortly. Over the coming hours, they'll receive any support and assistance that they need. The urgent work to free every single American, to free all other hostages, continues, as does our work to secure the safe passage out of Gaza for the Americans who are trapped there. In this particular instance, I want to thank the government of Qatar for their very important assistance.
Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes continue to pound Gaza now 2 weeks after the Hamas attacks and have killed over 4,000 people. Hamas has said about 20 of its hostages were previously killed in airstrikes, without giving details. It also says a further 50 hostages are being held by other militant groups.
Well, and now moving on, Israel continues to hit targets in Gaza as well as Hamas supporters in Lebanon and Syria. Medical sources in Gaza said that more than 200 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes overnight. In Gaza's Khan Yunis, this funeral was held for 7 family members killed in an airstrike that hit their home at dawn. Israel began its unrelenting airstrikes on Gaza, one of the most densely populated places on earth, after Hamas gunmen breached the border on October 7. Let's take a look at this report.
Concerns over the risk of a wider Middle East conflict increased on Sunday as the US dispatched more military assets to the region. That's also as Israel continued to pummel targets in Gaza, as well as Hamas supporters in Lebanon and Syria. Medical sources in Gaza said more than 200 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes overnight. In Gaza's Khan Yunis, this funeral was held for 7 family members killed in an airstrike that hit their home at dawn. Israel began its unrelenting airstrikes on Gaza, one of the most densely populated places on earth, after Hamas gunmen breached the border on October the 7th. Their rampage killed 1,400 people, most of them civilians, and saw 212 hostages taken back to Gaza. The enclave's health ministry said on Saturday that Israel's retaliation had killed more than 4,000 Palestinians, including hundreds of children. Israel has amassed tanks and troops near Gaza's fenced border for a planned ground invasion and, according to an Israeli army spokesperson, intensified their bombardment overnight. Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said the deputy chief of Hamas's rocket force had been killed and that killing, quote, terrorists and seniors was their priority. In neighbouring Syria, where Hamas's main backer Iran has a presence, Israeli missiles hit Damascus and Aleppo international airports, according to Syrian state media. Israel also said it had bombed Iran-backed Hezbollah targets on Saturday. Hezbollah said 6 of its fighters were killed. Meanwhile, the US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has said Washington will send more military assets to the Middle East. It's a move in support of Israel and to strengthen the US defense posture in the region, following, quote, recent escalations by Iran and its proxy forces. Austin said a terminal high-altitude area defense system and additional Patriot defense missile system battalions would be sent, and more troops put on standby. The US has already deployed significant naval power to the Middle East in recent weeks.
And now moving on, the Cairo summit hosted by Egypt failed to reach an agreement on how to contain the violence between Israel and Hamas. Arab leaders condemned the Israel bombardment of Gaza, while mostly Western countries said that civilians should be shielded, but with Israel and senior US officials absent, there was no consensus on how to resolve the conflict. The message the Arab world is hearing is loud and clear. That is what King Abdullah II of Jordan said in his remarks. He further added that Palestinian lives matter less than Israeli ones. Our lives matter less than other lives. The application of international law is optional and human rights have boundaries. They stop at borders, they stop at races, and they stop at religions. That is the strong statement coming in from the King of Jordan as well. The European countries didn't agree to sign the charter brought forward by Egypt as it omitted out Israel's right of self-defense against Hamas. After hours of speeches, the gaping divide between the Western countries and Arab countries remained as pronounced as ever. However, despite the lack of summit declaration, it was clear that even the Western countries agreed to a steady flow of humanitarian aid in Gaza, with many promising to increase the aid as well. The people of Gaza are the ones who are being the most affected by it. Now let's quickly listen in to some of the reactions and some of the statements made by global leaders in the summit.
We warn of any attempts to displace our people from Gaza, and we also warn of any attempts to expel Palestinians from their homes or displacing them from Jerusalem or the West Bank, because we will not accept displacement and we will remain steadfast on our land no matter the challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, we will not leave, we will not leave, we will not leave, and we will remain on our land. I can assure the world very clearly and honestly of the will of the Egyptian people that the solution to the Palestinian issue will not happen under any circumstance at the expense of Egypt ever. I invited you all here today so we can together come to an agreement on a roadmap that aims at ending the current humanitarian disaster in Gaza and to revive a path to peace through several fronts, starting with a guarantee of a safe, complete, fast, and continuous flow of humanitarian assistance to Gaza that is immediately followed by negotiations for a ceasefire and quick negotiations leading to a two-state solution and the foundation of an independent Palestinian state.
Because even if our starting points were not perfectly the same, our interest is perfectly the same. That is, the interest of all the leaders sitting around this table that what is happening in Gaza does not become a much wider conflict. That it does not turn into a religious war and a clash of civilization, rendering in vain the efforts that have courageously been made in recent years to normalize relations.
There are innocent victims on both sides. There are civilians kept hostages, and no peace can be discussed until they are free. And there are civilians killed and wounded in horrible conditions, brutally assassinated in their homes in Israel, losing their lives in the destruction of the Al-Ahli hospital in Gaza. The position of Greece has been very clear from the beginning. Israel has a right of self-defense, but in accordance with international and humanitarian law. And I also want to be clear that collective punishment is prohibited by the laws of war. And these laws were designed to ensure that when war must be conducted, there are limits on what harm can be done to other human beings. We are ready to contribute to any peace initiative, and as a neighboring country, we hope that an immediate de-escalation can be attained and humanitarian aid can be provided to all civilians. The future that we want for this region, the future of sustainable peace, stability, and prosperity can only be attained with the resumption of the peace process on the basis of a two-state solution. And if one thing should be clear to all of us is that no military intervention can replace a viable political solution.
And now moving on, Russia-American journalist Alsu Khurramesheva had her detention extended by 72 hours on Friday in a case where she is accused of violating Russia's law on foreign agents. Take a look at this report.
Detained Russian-American journalist Alsu Khurramesheva has had her custody extended by 72 hours. The Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty journalist has been accused of violating Russia's law on foreign agents. The Prague-based journalist was detained and had her passport seized at the airport in June. She had entered Russia in May for a family emergency. According to court documents, Khurramesheva was fined just over $100 earlier this month for failing to register her US passport with Russian authorities. She was charged a week later with failure to register as a foreign agent, an offence that carries up to 5 years in prison. She is the second US journalist to be arrested and charged in Russia since the start of its war in Ukraine, which has sunk relations between Moscow and Washington to their lowest level in more than 60 years. In March, Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich was arrested on spying charges, which he denies. Speaking on Thursday, US spokesperson Matt Miller called the journalist's detention harassment and urged US citizens to return home. In response, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters there was no campaign to persecute US citizens. The media organization that Khurramesheva works for is funded by the US Congress and designated by Russia as a foreign agent, meaning it gets foreign funding for activity deemed to be political. Radio Free Europe has called for Khurramesheva's immediate release, calling her a, quote, highly respected colleague, devoted wife, and dedicated mother to 2 children. No date has been set for a trial for either Gershkovich or Khurramesheva. It is unclear whether Khurramesheva might face further charges.
Well, that's all the time we have for you on the show, but don't go anywhere as we continue to bring you latest updates on the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas and all the top trending stories of the hour. So stay tuned and keep watching News9 Live.
Literally every major power in the world is gearing up with its own digital currency.